I thought I'd grown immune to humiliation. In the army, they call it baptism by fire. Getting screamed at by a drill sergeant until his breath scalded your ear. Being thrown into freezing Carolina mud. Crawling under barbed wire until your palms bled. I believed nothing could shake me anymore. But no training ever prepared me to stand in a mansion's cathedral-like dining room, Persian rugs underfoot, and take a slap across the face from my mother-in-law. The sound cracked through the air like a rifle butt slamming wood. I staggered half a step, not from pain, but from shock. Elena Reed, the woman I'd been practicing to call Mom, had just swung her Chanel-scented hand at me in front of her daughter and two guests who pretended to sip cognac as if nothing happened. "You ungrateful thing," she hissed, each word like glass splintering against the floor. I hadn't regained my footing before another strike came, this time not with a hand but with spit. High heels tapped toward me, and Vanessa, my sister-in-law, leaned in. Her blonde curls gleamed, her lips painted a shade of red meant for sin. Her eyes flicked down to the insignia stitched over my left chest. A thin smile curled, and then wet, warm, disgusting. Her spit landed on my sand-colored ACU, crawling down the seam like a slug. Hot, slimy, filthy in a way no training ground could prepare me for. I didn't look down in shock. I looked down because my chest clenched. That wasn't just spit. That was contempt for my oath, for the midnight medevacs, for the brothers who carried each other across landing zones just to keep a pulse alive. "Pretty uniform, huh?" Vanessa sneered. "Now it looks like a rag." The room buzzed with whispers against walnut-paneled walls. Cognac fumes mingled with leather and polish. The chandelier sparkled off Elena's frown lines like knife edges. Every detail bore down on me, a foreign object in a painting of old money pride. I wanted to wipe it off. I wanted to throw words sharp enough to make her choke on her smirk, but instinct, drilled into me in barracks and hospitals, locked my shoulders. Breathe, assess, stand your ground. That was what kept me alive. I wasn't going to break from a slap and a spit. "Anything to say, Harper." Elena tilted her head, her gaze as icy as January water. I inhaled, letting the waxy scent of polished wood fill my lungs. "No, ma'am," I said slowly. "I'm only here because your family invited me to dinner." "Family," Vanessa scoffed. "You don't belong in this family. Jack should have chosen better." A flash popped. Tristan, my brother-in-law, had his phone up. The red dot blinked as he began recording, his grin stretching wide. "Good lighting," he muttered. "Let's show everyone how the soldier girl lowers her flag." I met his lens. "You can put that away," I said, calm and flat. "You don't record me without consent." "This house, our rules," Elena cut in. "Here, you'll learn respect." I pressed a hand to my left chest over the cooling spit and memory punched through. Fort Liberty just a week ago, backyard BBQ, smoke curling under string lights. Travis strumming guitar, B clinking a Bud Light against my plastic cup. "Overcooked again, Doc." We laughed, grease spitting on the grill. That was home. No chandeliers, no gilded frames, just sweat and laughter. "Wipe it," Vanessa said suddenly, thrusting a lace-trimmed napkin in my face. "Or don't you know how to bend?" I looked at the napkin, then at her. "I bend only to save lives, not for humiliation." A chuckle from somewhere right, I didn't care who. Elena leaned in, voice sharp as glass. "You think that uniform is honor. Here, the crest of this family is honor." "Honor," I echoed, my tongue dry. "Where I serve, honor means you don't spit on another soldier's uniform." Her lips pressed into a blade. The golden frames above the fireplace glared down, their painted eyes siding with whoever had the deepest pockets. I unlocked my own safety, counting. 1, 2, 3, until Tristan's camera hum became mosquito whine. At 12, I saw everything sharp. Vanessa's ribbon a hair crooked, Elena's pearls reflecting my warped face, a snag in the rug beneath my boot. Their flaws showed, and suddenly I wasn't small. "Where's Jack?" Vanessa raised her voice for the whole room. "Oh, right, on deployment. Nobody's saving you tonight." The word saving iced my spine. It dragged me back to white hospital lights, iodine, a young soldier's muffled cry as I shoved his dislocated shoulder back. Out there, nobody saved me. I was the one keeping life and death apart. That truth cinched around my chest and held me up taller. "Enough, Alina," an older man croaked from the corner. "She's Jack's wife." Alina shot him a look that shut him up. Then she turned back, eyes narrowing at me like I was dust on her polished table. "You'll apologize here now." "For what?" I asked. "For dragging Barrick's attitude into this house, for embarrassing Jack, for daring to say no to family." She tilted her chin. "Kneel." The air thickened. Vanessa held her breath. Tristan steadied his phone, poised to capture me crumbling. I looked at my knees. They'd been torn raw crawling under wire, slammed on helicopter floors, bent beside ICU beds while I held shaking hands. I had knelt for life, for prayer, but not for someone's pride. "No," I said. Silence. Then Alina's sharp, incredulous, "Excuse me." "I won't apologize for telling the truth," I said evenly. "And I won't kneel in a place where honor is forged from chandeliers and portraits." Vanessa snorted. "Who do you think you are?" "I'm the woman Jack chose," I replied, "and the officer my patients trust." Alina's face drained, her lipstick paling. "Get out of my house." "Gladly," I said, "but first I'll keep this." I dabbed the spit with my own handkerchief, slid it into my pocket. "Evidence," I whispered, not to them but to myself. "Silence kills, evidence saves." My phone buzzed, a text from B. "CT okay. Don't let them make you forget who you are, Doc." I didn't reply, but those words clipped onto me like a harness strap. Tristan shoved his phone closer. "Say it, I'm sorry, ma'am, then I'll stop recording." I stared into his lens. In it, I saw my own eyes, tired, strained, but not afraid. "I won't apologize for refusing to be a prop," I said. "And if you keep filming, maybe a court will need it one day." Alina barked a laugh. "Court? Who would believe you, a girl in a uniform?" "This uniform," I said, "isn't for people to believe me. It's to remind me every word I speak carries weight between life and death, and I choose my words carefully." A breeze slipped through the cracked door, stirring the drapes. I swore it sounded like soldiers saluting. Maybe nonsense, but sometimes nonsense saves you. It yanked me back into my stance. "I'll go," I said, turning, but Vanessa slid in front, blocking the door. "If you won't apologize, then sign." She flicked her chin toward a thin folder on the table. I saw the embossed letters of a bank. Tonight wasn't dinner, it was an ambush. I pressed 2 fingers to the cover and shut it. "No," I said for the 3rd time, each word heavy as a hammer. "Then kneel," Vanessa spat. "Or get out," Alina added. I thought of the grill at Fort Liberty, the smoke, the laughter, the embraces after 12-hour shifts. I thought of Jack, wherever he was, and what he always told me before I boarded a medevac. "Breathe, hold your spine." I breathed, I held. "I'll leave," I said at last. Vanessa stepped aside, granting the path like a queen. At the doorway, I paused. "And I'll remember every detail tonight, who laughed, who filmed, who stood by." "Threats," Alina snapped. "Testimony," I answered. "In my job, one wrong detail means a lost life." I walked, boots steady on the rug. At the 4th step, I heard Tristan curse. "Battery's dead." At the 6th, Vanessa exhaled hard. At the 8th, the heavy door before me rattled, its latch nudged as if by a hidden hand. I stopped. My own hand didn't shake. Strangely, calm spread through me, sharp and cold. Whatever waited beyond, I would stand tall. I didn't know it then, but that sound was the opening volley of something far bigger. All I knew was the spit stain had dried into salt, and I swore I'd never let that salt mix with my tears. Dinner at the Reed Mansion never felt like dinner. It was a tribunal. The long white tablecloth stretched like a sterile sheet in an operating room. Crystal chandeliers rained down golden light that bounced off Bordeaux glasses and silver cutlery. Lavender drifted from the centerpiece vase, mixing with the buttery smell of salmon. Everything was perfect, polished, and suffocating. So different from meals at Fort Liberty. There, perfection meant a grill smoking too much, ribs charred on the edges, a bucket of Bud Lights floating in melting ice, and someone's laugh cracking over an old country song. That was family. This was theater. Eleanor sat at the head like a judge awaiting a guilty plea. Vanessa lounged back, arms folded, lips painted into a thin, satisfied curve. Tristan didn't touch his food, just kept swirling his glass and tapping the record button on his phone, making sure every word would be captured. I sat straight-backed, like in a briefing room, scanning faces. Cousins, family, friends, all pretending to fuss with salad forks, but I felt their glances, the curl of smirks. None of them wore uniforms, but every one of them had picked a side, and it wasn't mine. "Harper," Eleanor began, tone flat as a legal clause. "You know what the Reed name means. Jack is our pride, but this family needs cooperation. We can't let a few numbers ruin everything." I set down my knife and fork. "I don't follow." Vanessa's laugh cut through crystal. "You understand." She dropped a manila folder onto the table. "Alone, just your signature as guarantor. In return, we stopped talking about what happened this morning." Tristan leaned in, smirk glowing under the chandelier. "Better sign. Don't want the video getting out, do you?" His finger tapped his phone, the click echoing through the silence. My palm pressed to the folder. Thin sheets, yet they weighed like lead. I closed it and pushed it back. "No." The air locked. Eleanor tilted her head, lips pressed tight, eyes flashing a warning. Vanessa arched an eyebrow, entertained. Tristan chuckled and hit record again. "You really want to pit yourself against this entire family?" Eleanor's voice was calm, judicial, like she'd said those words to dozens before me. I drew a breath, forcing out the rich scent of salmon, and summoned Fort Liberty. The grill haze, the slap of a buddy's hand on my shoulder, country music buzzing through a beat-up speaker. There I was Doc, the medic they trusted. Here I was the outsider, just a pawn in the Reed family's financial game. A memory stabbed sharp as glass. 17 years old, my stepmother's dining room. The West Point acceptance letter crumpled in her fist, tossed aside. "The Army is for people with no future," she'd spat. My half-sister, 15, beamed in her cheer uniform while they showered her with praise. I'd bitten my tongue, swallowed my tears, and swore one day I'd prove them all wrong. Back in the present, Vanessa toyed with her glass, voice dripping venom. "Be practical. It's just a signature, not your life. But if you refuse, don't expect a place in this house. We don't feed parasites." My hand clenched on my thigh, fingers trembling, not fear, rage. I had steadied rifles through freezing dawns, held pressure on bleeding wounds for hours, and never shook. But here, under chandeliers and fake smiles, I trembled. "I won't sign," I said again, slow, deliberate. The silence grew heavy. I could hear the clock tick in the hall. Eleanor sighed, long and heavy, as if I just confirmed her suspicion, that I was a stain on the Reed family portrait. Vanessa laughed out loud, triumphant. Tristan pressed record once more, archiving every word like ammunition for later. I stayed still. In my head, I heard the checklist I drilled into young medics: observe, record, hold position. This wasn't a battlefield in Iraq or Afghanistan, but it was a battlefield all the same. And from the moment I said no, the real war had begun. From the moment I said no, the house shifted climate, not in temperature, but in pressure. Doors stayed open, chandeliers still glowed, silverware gleamed, yet no one held eye contact with me longer than a single breath. I was an object misplaced in their pristine gallery. Everyone circled wide, as though touching me might stain their hands. The first morning I came down at 07:45 sharp. Marble floors cold as if misted over with frost. Eleanor never glanced at me, just spoke to the housekeeper like she was reciting a calendar entry. "Less butter in the croissants." Vanessa leaned back in her chair, lifting an espresso cup, lips painted into a red smirk. Oh, captains up early like common folks. I thought soldiers slept in bunkers. Click, dry, sharp, Tristan snapping a photo. I poured water. The crystal chilled my fingers. The first swallow dropped heavy like ice falling into my gut. At Fort Liberty, I'd sip lukewarm water from a dented steel canteen after a night shift and feel life soften. Here, the water slid down my throat like lead. Morning bled into noon, noon into afternoon. Each hour carried its own ritual. At 11, the library phone rang twice. Alina called a relative. She's a good girl, but impulsive, doesn't understand the word family. Her voice wrapped in velvet, but each word nailed down like steel tacks. By 3, Vanessa stood on the patio, phone speaker blasting, the clip of me being slapped, captioned. Army captain stirs up trouble with in-laws. Tristan snorted, zooming in on my bruised cheek. I didn't fight. I opened my pocket notebook and wrote, Day 2, 1508 SIL circulated humiliation. Witnesses, VT, neighbor with brown hair. My pen scratched steady, letters clean as compass lines on a map. Dinner turned into trial. White cloth, tall candles, butter-browned halibut scent in the air. Alina's fork clinked as she turned to me. Harper, what do you think sacrifice means? I opened my mouth, but she cut me off. Sacrifice means putting family's interest above your own. Vanessa chimed in, playful. Didn't the Army teach sacrifice? Seems like our captain keeps everything for herself. The table laughed lightly. Their laughter sounded like sand dragged across glass. I placed my palm flat under the table, feeling my pulse. 1, 2, 3, breathe, assess, stand your ground. Rumors slithered out soft. A distant aunt texted, Alina's hurt, dear. You're embarrassing Jack. I screenshotted, filed it in a folder I named CT Read Log. No reply. At base, silence helped catch rotor blades over crosswinds. Here, silence filtered noise into data. Another afternoon, I passed the living room. They replayed the slap clip. Guests leaned forward, hands covering mouths, but eyes lit bright. My fist clenched white, then released. I didn't step in. I wouldn't argue inside their curated frame. That night, I logged. Day 3, 18. 02, clip replayed before relatives' right arrow objective. Reinforce troublemaker image. At night, my guest room glowed false warm under yellow light. I laid my notebook beside a zip bag tissue dabbed with the spit stain from my uniform that first night. I wrote, Evidence #1 fabric/tissue with dried salt, stored with ruler for scale. Then photographed each page, each bruise, each timestamp. Files labeled like surgical reports. CT Read 01 humiliation. CT Read 02 phone narrative. CT Read 03 dinner bait. The keyboard clicks in the dark sounded like helicopter rotors. Steady, anchoring, survival. Day 4, a financial advisor came. Spreadsheets unfolded. Print so small it looked like infection cultures under a microscope. Floating rates, cross-collateral, liability clauses, every cell stank of a trap. I closed the folder. No, I said, soft but final. Alina smiled without teeth, eyes cold as brass buttons. Vanessa exhaled through her nose. Everyone has a price. I replied, not everyone sells. That evening, Vanessa leaned on the porch rail, swirling wine. Writing in that little book, add this, you're betraying family. I snapped the notebook shut. I'm not betraying my oath. She blinked, 1 second off guard, then smiled sharp as a paring knife. So I logged. Day 4, 16, 41, word choice, betrayal, right arrow tactic. Attack soldier's honor. Objective, force loyalty test. To cope, I built rituals of my own, replacing the old habit of field stripping my M17. Log, backup, seal. Each night after 2200, I scanned my notes, uploaded to 2 inboxes, one encrypted drive, one cold seal in a hard disk hidden inside my suitcase lining. Then I texted my battle buddy at Fort Liberty, started the log. She sent back 3 words, crisp as a command: hold heart, hold spine, hold truth. I pressed them into the inside cover until they left dense. By day 5, they switched tactics, isolation. I'd enter a room, chatter stopped, chairs scraped back, doors swung open, footsteps faded. Silence as suffocation. I logged. Day 5, 11:32, isolation tactic, silent zone. I didn't chase. I didn't fill gaps with apologies. I poured water, drank slow like in a field hospital, steady, measured. That afternoon, an aunt dropped by with tart. Her voice soft as foam. Dear, soften up. Family comes first. I nodded politely. In my head, I wrote, Day 5, 15:06, proxy message, soften target into signing. Patterns emerged, crisp as ops planning slides. Isolate right arrow, humiliate right arrow, disinform right arrow, financial bait right arrow, force, kneel or sign. In Psy-Ops class, they called it psychological warfare. Here, it wore pearls and perfume. That night, Tristan tried a lighter trick. He shoved a floral apron at me. For fun, he said, setting up his phone. I tied it, carried the tray, set it down, then stripped it off. I looked straight into his lens. When a person with self-respect refuses to be humiliated. My voice was low, not sharp. His hand twitched, the frame shuddered. I noted. Day 5, 1924, operator faltered when subject didn't evade camera. At 22:11, a text from an unknown number. Don't make Jack choose. Accusation in 1 sentence. I screenshotted, filed it under CT read 0 for pressure. No reply. I washed my face, touched the fading bruise on my jaw. Underneath the fading mark, something new grew tougher. Day 6, a leaner laid out a photo album. Each snapshot retold history. Remember Christmas? Harper nearly burned the oven. Vanessa pointed. I remembered Jack tossing in a damp log. Truth erased, rewritten. I snapped photos of the album, no flash. Log. Day 6, 14:20, gaslighting memory. No arguments, evidence only. That night, I added a new ritual, cross-reference. I pulled call logs, aligned them on a timeline, tagged who laughed, who looked away, who filmed. Dots connected into a network. In field hospitals, I connected vitals to measure survival. Here, I connected behavior to measure lies. Day 7, luncheon. Guests filed in, flowers and rehearsed smiles. I was assigned kitchen corner. I washed knives, aligned lemons in a crescent like surgical tools. A guest peeked in. So you're the soldier, impressive, but women should be softer. I answered, in surgery, too soft a hand drops the suture. She froze, forced a laugh, retreated. Vanessa popped in. Don't act smart, sis-in-law. I'm not acting, I said. I'm stitching. At night, I taped a checklist inside my suitcase. Observe, log, backup, seal, don't argue, don't kneel, don't sign. I read each line aloud like roll call in an ER, ensuring no patient, including myself, got left behind. Rain tapped the windows, thin as dust. I stood on the porch, air damp on my ACU, texted my battle buddy. Week 1 logged. Her reply came fast. Proud of you. I tucked the phone away, slid my notebook under the pillow like an order sheet. Before lights out, I wrote one last line. Tonight, my silence isn't to let them control me. It's to give truth a place to stand. Morning broke, clock chiming 8. The house awoke as if no war had taken place. I dressed in a clean ACU. The salt stain had faded, leaving a faint white scar along the seam. I smoothed it once, the way you touch a scar that's sealed but never forgotten. Chin up, spine straight, hands steady. I stepped into the hall. No one had to make way. I walked straight, not trying to join their story anymore. I was writing mine, with evidence, with breath, and with a vow. I would never again let silence protect the guilty. In this house, memory wasn't something you kept. It was something they molded. I learned that one Sunday morning when a leaner placed a family photo album on the coffee table, the household gathering around as if it were a sacred scripture. Each picture became a stage, and she the narrator. Christmas Eve, Harper nearly burned the oven. Vanessa pointed, her laugh crawling across the frame. I remembered it clearly. The wet log Jack had tossed into the fire, the smoke curling into my hair, the resin smell sticking to our clothes. But in their version, the blame was mine. Nobody asked me. Nobody cared for the truth. In this house, truth was just a prop. I didn't argue. I slipped my phone out, snapped each page, flash off, and logged it. Gaslighting via memory, altering the past to fit the present. Standing behind them, I watched Alina's ringed hand turn pages with the grace of a stage director. Oddly, I felt calm. Maybe because, for the first time, I saw their operation laid bare. Tell story, right arrow, assign blame, right arrow, broadcast. A fixed cycle, like a night shift roster. And once you see the cycle, you know where to cut. That night in the guest room, I pulled the curtains shut, lit the desk lamp, spread my notes across the bed. I drew a timeline of the week. The 11 a.m. call, the 3 p.m. clip, the 6 p.m. dinner trial, the 2 p.m. photo album ambush. I linked each with arrows and initials. E, frame and control. V, trigger, provoke. T, record, amplify. In the margin, I scribbled. Psyops, isolate, demoralize, disinform, exploit. At Fort Liberty, an engineering officer once lectured on psychological warfare. You don't attack an enemy's fortress head-on. You cut supply, isolate, sow doubt, and let them collapse on their own. The Reeds were following the textbook. Only their battlefield was hardwood floors and Chardonnay air. I leaned back, eyes closed. Rain drifted in through the window, faint and musty. And suddenly West Point lit up in my head like an old reel. Winter parade ground, fog rising to the knees. I was 18, pack straps cutting into my shoulders, jacket soaked, knuckles raw. An upper-class cadet glanced sideways, flashlight beam cold. You'll dump that ruck at the first mile. Girls can't carry it. I didn't answer. I bent my head, gripped the straps harder, let the weight carve into my spine as a vow. Step after step, mud sucking at my boots, wind slicing my bare wrists. And beneath the cold, a quiet flame, a pride that came not from outpacing anyone but from refusing to let them write my story. Back in the Reed house, that lesson snapped into place. At West Point, the crack they aimed for was my gender. Here, it was my honor. My vulnerability wasn't finances, it was Jack. The thought of don't embarrass your husband. They knew. That's why the midnight text. Don't make Jack choose. I underlined it, read twice in my log. Identify the crack. Seal it. So I drafted a counterplan, not with shouting, but with data. Systematize evidence. Every quote, clip, photo, right arrow, time, place, witness, probable, objective. Chain of custody. Scans uploaded to encrypted drives. Cold seal sent to JAG inbox at Fort Liberty. Bait responses. Send neutral texts to provoke longer replies, record their true narrative. Neutral witnesses. The housekeeper, the gardener, the neighbor with brown hair, small links they forgot. Personal safety. Safe word with my battle buddy, check-in twice daily, a go bag, papers, cash, jacket, exit ladder. Always a fallback route, safe contact, pre-marked. I didn't call it paranoia, I called it field medicine. Prepare before the alarm rings. The next day, I tested item #3. I texted Vanessa. I'll be in the library at 1400 if you'd like to discuss the documents. Neutral wording, bait for her narrative. 10 minutes later, her replies hammered in. There's nothing to discuss. In this family, law is Reed's word. If you won't sign, you'll stay silent. Jack's ashamed of you. I read each line not as wound, but as arrow added to the chart. Pressure, right arrow, shame, right arrow, silence. Screenshot, filed under CT Reed pressure. At tea that afternoon, Alina smiled soft, silk gestures, pouring Darjeeling in the sunroom. Harper, she said, discipline is knowing when to yield. I sipped steady. Yielding doesn't mean signing a dangerous document. Her porcelain cup clicked. Danger, she said sweetly, is you making Jack ashamed. The blade flashed under lace. I set my cup down. Jack's honor doesn't come from my signature, ma'am. Her smile froze half a second before reforming. Don't fight the tide, dear. I'm not fighting it, I said. I'm building a levee. That night, I added soft countermeasures. I emailed relatives a bland thank you, slipping in 2 small false schedule times. By morning, one aunt corrected them. Proof info leaked through the hidden family chat. I logged who forwarded, not to condemn her, to map the water's flow. If you know where rumors run, you know where to build the dam. The gardener's wife mentioned 2 figures near the patio at 10:02 p.m. I placed a dot on my chart, not evidence yet, but a breadcrumb. At 18:00, the family council. Lavender candles, guests lined in rows. Tristan's camera perched high. Alina Reed like scripture. The Reed family must stand united. Harper, you may join or exclude yourself. Criteria, Vanessa answered, eyes gleaming. Apologize and sign. 2 nooses, I inhaled, my pulse slowed. I won't apologize for truth, and I won't sign. Silence plunged. Before anyone filled it with laughter, I turned, looked into Tristan's camera, and said, if anyone replays this, keep the original file uncut. His eyes flicked, his grip faltered. 1 arrow on my diagram snapped. That night on my floor, notebook open, I wrote in bold, I will not let them write my memory. I reviewed the 6-point plan, log, backup, seal, cross-check, set traps, protect myself. Each word underlined like a scalpel stroke. Helicopter rotors spun in my head, steady and grounding. At Fort Liberty, an instructor once said, when pushed out of your own story, reclaim it with precision. Precision is the only thing they can't steal. So I wrote and backed up and sealed. Then I smiled for the first time in days. Not because I'd won, because I'd found my way to fight. Next morning, I woke before the bell, brewed black coffee, the bitter smell sharp and grounding. I zipped the file CT Read Week 1 to JAG, CC'd my battle buddy, straightened my collar, squared my shoulders. As I passed the mirror in the hall, I caught my reflection, upright, calm, unbroken. I whispered to myself, I'm carrying exactly what I was meant to carry, and I stepped into the day. Not silent, not erased, but sealed in truth, sworn never again to let silence protect the guilty. Isolation has no smell, no noise, no slammed doors. It creeps in quietly, changing the way people look at you. Straight glances turn sideways, warmth turns dim. Monday morning, I walked into the dining room as usual. The chair across from me was empty, not because no one sat, but because they'd all shifted around, rearranged seats, angled backs, as if the sunbeam through the window had landed exactly where I was. Alina told the housekeeper, in her usual velvet tone, add another vase by the window. The flowers stood exactly in the line of sight between me and everyone else. Rumors left the mansion in clean shoes. An aunt dropped off a tart, leaving a parting shot. When a daughter-in-law becomes too difficult, the family has to choose the least painful path. I smiled politely. That afternoon, the brunette neighbor leaned across the fence, whispered like the trees might overhear. They say you don't respect Jack, that you're dramatic. My hand tightened around the garden shears until my knuckles whitened. That night, an old army buddy texted me. Hey Doc, your sister-in-law's been telling folks you're unstable. You good? I typed good, deleted it, then sent. Still standing tall. Then I opened my log. Day 819, 12 new narrative. Unstable right arrow objective. Undermine credibility. The week's charity luncheon turned into a stage play. Vanessa lingered on the porch, one hand on a wine glass, the other grazing shoulders, dripping whispers like honey. The moment I walked out, the conversation flipped channels. Smiles snapped shut, backs turned, only clinking silverware and lavender scent thick as fog remained. Tristan's camera rested against a porch column, angled past me like he was capturing scenery. But being turned into scenery was worse than being filmed. At least on camera you were still a person. Alina didn't scold. She scattered soft obstructions through the house. The family album lay open, but the Christmas photo of Jack and me was gone, replaced with Vanessa cradling her poodle under the tree. Where my image had been was only a faint glue stain. "Albums should be neat," Alina said smoothly. "Clutter distracts the eye." I closed it and saw my own shadow ripple across the glossy cover, like watching a mission debrief scrub my name off the credits. That afternoon, I hit the small gym in the mansion, forcing my muscles to remember West Point ruck marches. I set the treadmill to a steep incline, country music low in my ears. By minute 18, Vanessa opened the door, leaned on the frame. "Don't push too hard," she purred. "You'll need your strength to argue." I hit the speed button instead. On the treadmill, life was simple. Left foot, right foot, breath, sweat. Off the treadmill, they broke that rhythm with words, so I kept my own rhythm like holding a patient's pulse before the scalpel touched skin. The silent zone grew larger the next day. I walked past the library, teacups clinked, pages rustled, then silence. Entered the living room, they slipped out to the patio. Went to the patio, they slid back into the kitchen. On the surface, polite. Underneath, a riptide tugging you under. I logged day 910-03 physical isolation right arrow avoidance maneuver. Exhaustion was the trap. Then they could whisper, "She's withdrawn, antisocial." A cycle that fed itself. That night, I saw phones lighting at the dinner table. The secret family chat, when I wasn't invited to, was alive. I guessed from the half smiles, the sideways glances. The housekeeper placed a dish, her eyes caught mine. She gave the faintest nod like saying, "I see you." A nod as small as a toothpick, but enough to remind me. Solitude isn't the same as invisibility. The climax came Friday evening, Alina's community cocktail party. Guests poured in, laughter spilling with champagne bubbles, chandeliers dripping like starlight. I was stationed in the kitchen to slice lemons. Alina called it delicate hands, just like in the hospital. The chef slid me a tray of butter, whispering, "Don't cut barehanded, they'll call you unsanitary." I pulled gloves on and cut lemon rounds like gauze for wounds. From the living room, waves of laughter rose and fell, while in the kitchen I was invisible. Vanessa poked her head in. "Could you give a welcome?" She led me to the steps above the crowd. She raised her glass, voice honeyed. "Thank you all for coming. The Reed family treasures those who understand the meaning of family, and this is Harper." She turned, smiled. "She has a few adjustment challenges, but she's learning how to love the Reed way." The words fell light as feathers but landed like stones. Applause followed, thin, dutiful. I looked down, sequined shoulders, jeweled glasses, practiced smiles, all trained to stand with the powerful. I held the mic, heard my own breath echo. I wanted to say I loved Jack. That love wasn't about adjusting to someone else's standard. I wanted to remind them of the salt mark that stained my uniform that first night. I wanted to talk about battle buddies and BBQ smoke, where we called each other by name, not titles. But I realized isolation was their home field. Arguing here was skating on their ice. I placed the mic back, bowed politely, walked into the kitchen. Behind me, applause rose again, fading thinner with each step. Late that night, the house empty, perfume and wineglass rings left behind, I stood on the back porch. Cool night air touched my neck. I thought of another night on forward aid station duty. No doctor on shift, just me and a green private. 2 casualties came at once. I had to triage by ABC, airway, breathing, circulation. Choose one first, ignore the guilt, save both. Morning came, they lived. Someone said I was lucky. I didn't argue. I logged, followed protocol. Same here. I wouldn't argue I was being isolated. I logged. Day 10-23-40 party. Adjust to read standard, right arrow covert public humiliation. The next morning, I spotted Alina's pearl earring under the armchair, right where she'd stood. I wiped it clean, placed it on a silver tray with a note. Found near the chair. By the time I returned, it was gone. Alina scolded the housekeeper. Someone forgot to place the tray neatly. No subject, but plenty of direction. I smiled thin. When they push you out of the story, they push their own objects out too, anything to keep the narrative tidy. Midday, Jack's ranger buddy called. His voice raspy, wind-blown. "Harper, someone sent me clips, not pretty. I deleted them, just stay strong." My grip whitened on the table. "Thank you," I managed, voice steady. After the call, I logged. Day 11-12, 14 smear campaign reached Jack's unit right arrow objective. Discredit me before his brothers in arms. This strike landed. I had to hold the table for balance. Some blows don't bruise, but still make you reel. Later, the neighbor whispered over the fence. "They asked me for doorbell footage last night. I refused without a warrant." I nodded thanks. Sometimes allies help just by standing still. Passing the garage, I saw a ladder propped open. Toolbox ajar, smelled the clean metallic tang. It reminded me of clamps clicking in a helicopter, sounds steadier than meditation. By midnight, the house was silent as a chapel. I sat on the bed, logbook open, flipping pages from the past week. Over black ink, I scrawled red. Isolate equals cut allies. Demoralize equals retell me as burden. Exploit equals push public humiliation. Psy-ops vocabulary wasn't theory anymore. It was my life's texture. I breathed deep, not afraid. I'd marched alone before. I'd held an airway alone before. I could stand alone again. Near midnight, my phone buzzed. "Battle buddy, still with you." I typed back, "Still standing." Then I taped a checklist inside my suitcase. Isolation equals precision day. I listed silent allies, the housekeeper's nod, the neighbor refusing footage, Jack's buddy deleting clips, even the gardener warning about the camera. Solitary didn't mean abandoned. That night ended with dinner for 3. Alina, Vanessa, me. Tristan was busy. The meal passed without harsh words, just cutlery clinking soft as mist. At the end, Alina said, "Tomorrow, the family has internal matters. Please remain in your room." Internal was a door locked from the inside. I nodded, excused myself, wished them good night. In my room, I locked the door, leaned back against wood, listened to the grandfather clock tick like a distant rotor. Wind whispered through elms outside like blades over a far field. I pressed my palm to my chest. My spine was still straight. Nobody could bend it but me. I opened my notebook, wrote the last line of the day. "If necessary, I will stand alone." The truth weighs enough to keep me upright, even when others walk away. Then I turned off the light. In the dark, I pictured West Point's parade ground, fog at my knees, pack straps cutting into shoulders. I heard my own boots crunch gravel, steady, firm, no glancing back. Morning would come, and I would walk that hallway again, with or without anyone beside me. Morning began with the sound I trusted most in uniform, my own breathing. Inhale, exhale, steady as helicopter rotors miles away. I folded the sheets with barracks precision, tied my hair into a bun under a beanie, laced up my worn running shoes. The reed hallway stretched ahead like a runway, every step light, deliberate, like moving through an enemy's territory without triggering tripwires. I brewed coffee in the kitchen, the steam fogging the glass pane. With my finger, I traced 2 words, "Stand firm," then wiped it away like a surgeon clearing condensation off goggles before a cut. Today, I wasn't cutting flesh. I was dissecting isolation. On paper, their scheme was complete. Isolate right arrow, humiliate right arrow, disinform right arrow, bait with money right arrow, force, kneel or sign. I had mapped it, arrows and names like a field diagram. Now it was time to add my own circle. I texted my battle buddy back at Fort Liberty. Need an ear, no judgment. Code, ruck heavy. The reply came fast, keep your spine. 1 minute later, the phone buzzed again, secure call. I slipped in earbuds, opened the encrypted app, leaned against the wall, eyes on the elm trees outside swaying like salutes. I spoke without drama, the slap, the spit, the folder, the staged family council. All their stabs hadn't pierced me, because silence was my weapon. I didn't need her outrage. I needed her reminder, don't let silence protect the guilty. Keep evidence, Harper. Don't let silence kill you, she said, voice raspy from years of drill field wind. Treat this like your own CID case, chain of custody, time stamps, neutral witnesses, off-site backups, and don't fight them on their terrain. I wrote down every word, pressing the pen so hard it left grooves on the next page. Evidence wasn't new to me. In combat hospitals, I'd logged meds minute by minute. Here, I logged lies walking out the door on polished shoes. When the call ended, I opened my go bag. Encrypted USB, copies of ID, small bills, a jacket, a roll of tape, and pen. I slipped in evidence #1, the tissue with dried salt from Vanessa's spit. Labeled, signed, time-stamped, photographed with a ruler for scale. My hands were calm. This was no different from sealing a biopsy sample. When hands do their job, the mind finds peace. By 07:10, I stepped onto the back porch. Not to run, to patrol. I checked doorbell camera angles, blind spots, listened to the northern fence for sounds. Noted Aliner's habit of standing near the sunroom window, Vanessa's mirror-facing poses, Tristan's love for high angles. After reading the terrain, I planted a spare notebook in the kitchen drawer, labeled AI Kitchen. From now on, every casual remark in that room would have a timestamp. Clean data, no emotion. At 0925, the first soft proxy arrived with a tart. Family needs common ground, she said sweetly. I smiled. Logged, day 1209, 27 proxy. Don't embarrass Jack, right arrow shame vector. Scanned, uploaded to my encrypted drive and to JAG's inbox at Fort Liberty. Dual backups had saved me before when field generators cut out. Here, it would save my future from being accidentally erased. At noon, I drove to the post office under the excuse of buying medical tape. I mailed 2 sealed envelopes, one logged to JAG, one to my own P.O. box near base. Watching the postal stamp slam down felt like starting in Roman 4, truth flowing steady into a vein. On my way back, Vanessa lounged on the railing, swirling white wine. "Where'd you go cry today?" she asked, smile gleaming like a sharpened blade. I smirked. "Bought tape. This house has cracks that need sealing." Her blink was too fast, a tell she couldn't hide. Logged, 1312 Vanessa. Pressure narrative intact, you make Jack ashamed. I didn't argue, I let her script herself. At 1540, my buddy pinged. Review chain. I sent photos of my index, evidence, file names, timestamps, witnesses. She replied with a thumbs-up emoji and one line, "Good, now build your circle." I looked beyond her voice, to the housekeeper with her discreet nod, the gardener who warned me about the lens, the brunette neighbor who refused to share her footage without a warrant. I texted short thank yous, no requests, just, if asked, please state exactly what you saw, nothing more. I wasn't recruiting allies. I was restoring them to their rightful place on the map of truth. That evening, Tristan perched his camera on the porch. I walked straight past it, not flinching, eyes forward. Silence was no longer their weapon. In my hands, silence had context. For the first time, I saw his fingers twitch mid-record, one crack in their amplification line. At 17:55, Aliner approached, smile rehearsed. "Dear, would you say a few words tonight?" I stepped onto the stair landing, looked out at their polished guests, and said just 3 sentences, checklist clear. "Thank you for coming. I value the word family when it protects us from wrong. And tonight, if anyone records, please keep the full original." Then I turned to Tristan, polite, steady. His smirk faltered, fingers tightening on his phone. That night I spread open my suitcase, taped inside the lid a new checklist. Observe record backup sealed check-in exit. Below, in red, don't debate on enemy terrain. And beneath that, my buddy's words. Keep evidence, Harper. Don't let silence kill you. I studied my timeline again. Alina frames, Vanessa provokes. Tristan amplifies, and around them small nodes of truth, the housekeeper, gardener, neighbor, Jack's ranger buddy, and Bee. I wasn't alone. I was only hidden under chandeliers, so I turned off the room light and switched on the desk lamp. The glow was dimmer, but aimed exactly where it needed to be. At 20:00 sharp, I called my buddy. "Still standing," I reported first. Her chuckle was warm as a wool blanket on night watch. "Tomorrow," she said, "if they stage another apology, stand at the kitchen threshold. That spot has the house cam, foot traffic, neutral witnesses, and keep your hands free not to wipe another spit but to hold your logbook." I thanked her. Before we hung up, she added softly, "A real family doesn't force you to kneel. Real battle buddies don't force you to sign." Afterward, I slipped earbuds in, played old country songs that smelled like BBQ smoke. For a second, Fort Liberty came alive. Backyard laughter, grease popping, buddies clinking cans. There, nobody asked if I was worthy. They only asked, "Have you eaten?" I laughed out loud, short but real. Here in the Reed mansion, I built my own outpost, a mental barracks, a perimeter lined with truth, a logbook as my weapon, and a circle of battle buddies, faint but solid, standing with me through the static. I taped one last note inside my closet. "If they push you out of the story, come back with precision." Then I turned out the light, slid under covers, and let the tick of the grandfather clock sync with my breath. By the time sleep came, the dream began. Rotor blades, closer this time, thumping just beyond the front door. A signal. A reminder. Tomorrow the door might open. And when it did, I'd be ready to say 3 things. I logged it. I sealed it, and I am no longer silent. The dining room glittered like a stage set. Ivory tablecloth stretched flat, candles flickered, silverware aligned as if for inspection. But I didn't see dinner. I saw an ambush point. Alina sat at the head, dark leather binder before her like a disciplinary file. Vanessa leaned against a chair, wine glass in hand, smile sharp as glass. Tristan pretended to adjust lighting, but the tripod was locked, camera aimed square at me. Lemon polish, wine, oiled oak, all blended into one scent, the perfume of family power. "Harper," Alina's voice came smooth like a blade just sharpened. "It's time we end this. Kneel, read, sign, keep peace in the family." She pulled the binder open. The sheet inside dripped with words I knew too well. Apology, submission, never repeat. Vanessa sipped, tilted her head. "Come on, sis. Nobody wants Jack embarrassed because of you." Her voice chimed against the mic like crystal breaking. I placed both hands on my thighs, palms down to hide the tremor. Inhale 4, hold 2, exhale 6, the medic's breath. "For what exactly?" I asked, eyes locked on Alina. "For insolence," she said. "For disobedience, for disrupting this family's financial plans." And she paused like delivering a line, "for lacking gratitude." Tristan nudged the tripod. I shifted half a step, aligning with the kitchen threshold, the line where the door camera caught a sliver of the room, where the housekeeper often passed. A natural witness. Vanessa closed in, cool hand pressing my shoulder, tendons showing on her neck. "If you won't kneel, I'll help you." I rolled my shoulder, dropping weight like calming a patient mid-panic, redirecting force without fighting back. Then I rose, pulled the chair clear of the tripod's frame, and spoke for the house mic. "I have 3 statements." My eyes never left Alina's. 1. I respect family when family protects what's right. 2. Whoever holds recordings must keep the full original. 3. I will not kneel. The words fell heavy, silent as stone sinking deep. A frozen beat, then the chorus, Vanessa's shrill, Tristan's mocking, Alina's velvet scorn. Don't be stubborn. You're disgracing Jack. Who raised you this way? Their voices pressed down like blankets in summer heat. I breathed steady, spine braced like titanium rod. Alina slid the binder closer. Read this, sign Neil. No one wants scandal. Her voice sugared over poison. Closure. I tilted my head. Closure is when you stop spitting on a soldier's uniform and stop filming it. Vanessa leaned close, wine breath hot. Where's Jack? Desert dust. He won't walk through that door. But then the faintest sound, a metal clip brushing a latch. My body tightened, not hope, just recognition. The algorithm of situation had changed. Hold position, hold light, hold truth. Alina began reading the apology aloud. Vanessa's hand pressed my shoulder again. Tristan shifted angles. I memorized details. Wine tremor, citrus sting, lipstick smudge on glass, Alina's crow's feet creasing on the word discipline. Then the door burst open. Jack stood in the entry, uniform coated with deployment dust, boonie hat tucked in hand, rucksack heavy on his shoulders, eyes ringed with exhaustion. He didn't rush to me. His gaze swept the terrain. Tripod, binder, Vanessa's hand, my stance, the window gap, the exit line. When his eyes met mine, he gave one short, deep nod, the kind only used on landing zones. I see you. Vanessa's hand snapped back like she'd touched a live wire. Tristan dropped his phone, scrambled, lifted it again, but his frame shook. Alina stayed seated, only her lips twitched, mask slipping a millimeter. I'll hear everything, Jack said, voice raspy, low, but filling the air. He turned to Vanessa. And don't ever touch her again. She stammered, smile cracking. Are you threatening me in your mother's house? Jack didn't blink. I stated the rule. 3 words dry as sand. I slid my notebook out, red sticker on the cover, day 12 dining room. I placed it on the table, angled for the camera. 4 days before you came home, they demanded I kneel and read an apology. Before that, they created a group chat excluding me. Yesterday, they phoned relatives claiming I married you for money. Tonight, they told me to sign. I recited like reading a med chart, timed, dosed, factual. This is family discipline, Alina insisted, hands on the binder, voice sugar sweet again. My discipline, Jack answered, eyes unflinching, is that no one is forced to kneel. His words hit like nails hammered into oak. Tristan tried to recover. Keep going, guys, just recording family memories. Jack tilted his head a fraction, an operator's signal. Enough. Vanessa set her glass down too hard, wine rattling at the rim. Alina snapped the binder shut, pasted a smile back on like a retouched photo. Harper, she whispered, baiting the hook with silk, the family embraces you if you behave. I don't need a hand that only pushes people to kneel, I said, voice flat as marble. The housekeeper's steps crossed the hall, another witness in frame. My pen scratched. 2207V pressed shoulder, demanded kneel. 2209E pushed paper, demanded sign. 2210T shifted tripod left. My eyes stayed forward. Enough for tonight, Alina declared, scrambling to close ranks. No need for drama. She glanced at Jack. Go change, son, guests are waiting. Jack dropped his ruck on a chair. Metal clanged on wood. I'll stay with my wife. The words my wife sucked the breath from the room. Vanessa gasped, Tristan bit his lip, Alina's knuckles whitened. Any clip leaving this house cut or doctored, Jack said evenly, the original leaves before it. He glanced at my logbook as if signing his own witness statement. I nodded. Sink tight like 2 medics twisting tourniquets at opposite ends of a wound. The chandelier glowed, still warm, but the air carried metal's thin scent, reality sharp and undeniable. I snapped 3 wide shots, table, tripod, binder. Time stamps glowed. Uploaded to encrypted drive to JAG inbox. A dot turned green, delivered. The quiet in my chest felt like rotor blades touching down. "Don't shame us," Eleanor said one last time, her voice cracking. "Tomorrow I'll show relatives your defiance." "That's your choice," I said, "but full originals leave no room for lies." They dispersed without curtain call. Eleanor swept first, Vanessa postured like a runway model, Tristan lingered last, scanning for salvageable angles. The housekeeper's eyes followed. The chandelier hummed like a throat clearing. We stayed at the threshold. Jack studied my spine the way a soldier inspects a column after a storm, checking if it still stands. "You all right?" he asked softly. "All right," I said. "Enough evidence." "Want to leave tonight?" he asked, instinct coiled into care. "Not yet," I replied. "Let me capture the layout once more, then the final backup." We moved as if in drill, me snapping photos, him watching angles, each shutter click precise, decisive. I wrote the final log line. 2222 door opened, Jack. 2224 family dispersed. 2226 evidence preserved. I set the pen down, exhaled. My shoulders dropped, not from weakness, but from shifting weight. Silence in this house no longer shielded the guilty. It protected us. The front door stayed ajar. Night wind swept in, carrying earth's damp smell, flushing out the sour of cheap wine and bitter perfume. I looked into the dark beyond the threshold and knew this door wasn't theirs anymore. Tonight it had chosen truth. Jack brushed his knuckles across my hand, a soldier's subtle touch. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we talk to JAG." I nodded. In my head, my checklist ticked green: observe, record, backup, seal, check-in. I pressed the side button of my phone 3 times. Our signal, safe, slipped it back. At Fort Liberty, I once taught new medics how to slow a racing heart. Fix your gaze, drop your shoulders, count breaths. In the Reed mansion, under chandeliers and binders, I taught myself the same. No applause, no embrace, just stance, and one sealed logbook. We crossed the threshold, hallway light painting our shadows long across the rug. In memory, rotor blades faded into another sound, the crisp snap of my notebook closing. Small, tight in place. Tomorrow I'd open it with 3 words etched like a vow. Full, original, record. And from that night on, I was no longer the one being filmed. I was the one holding the camera. I was the keeper of truth. I was the soldier who would not kneel. The dining room after the door burst open felt like a battlefield just after the guns went quiet. Candles still flickered, the golden light shimmering across the ivory tablecloth, but all warmth was gone. Shards of glass from Vanessa's shattered wine goblet gave off a sour tang, mixing with the wax and the polish of oak. I stood tall, notebook clenched in my hand. Jack sat beside me, uniform dusted with deployment grit, straps still marking his shoulders. He didn't speak. A soldier fresh from war knows, sometimes silence itself is the order to hold your position. Eleanor broke first. Fingers gripping the edge of the table, she leaned forward, voice smooth as a lullaby. "Jack, you don't understand. I was only protecting the family's honor. Harper is too sensitive, too prideful." A laugh cracked from my throat, dry and sharp. "If documenting, photographing, and backing up evidence counts as being sensitive, then yes, I'll take that." I set my phone on the table. The screen lit up with files, screenshots of their secret group chat, the typed apology letter they demanded, the clip of Vanessa spitting on my uniform. Cold, undeniable, needing no commentary. Jack lifted his gaze, eyes cutting through. "Mom, out there I face death every day, but what shames me tonight isn't combat. It's watching how you've treated my wife. Harper stayed silent too long. Tonight, truth speaks." Vanessa sprang up, gown sweeping, face twisted with fury. She plays saint in uniform. You think these scraps can shame, mother? She married you for money, Jack. She only wants the Reed name. I didn't answer. I turned my notebook toward Tristan's still-running camera and Reed, voice even clinical. Day 12, 21:43, a leaner demanded signature. Day 12, 22:07, Vanessa forced pressure to kneel. Day 12, 22:09, Tristan adjusted tripod. The words landed heavy, not accusations. Records. Alina pressed a manicured hand to her forehead, smile collapsing. Jack, listen to me. Harper doesn't fit this family. Think of your career. Think of your reputation. Jack planted both hands on the table, shadows stretching long across the rug. My honor is built from sweat, blood, and the men I serve with. Nobody bargains with that. His voice dropped low, eyes dark. I've seen enough. Harper did not kneel, and I stand with her. The air thickened like storm clouds before lightning. Vanessa faltered, stepping back. Tristan shoved his phone into his pocket, unable to meet Jack's eyes. Alina slumped into her chair, hands clasped tight, trembling. The statue of their perfect family cracked right there in their gilded dining room. I drew in a breath, lungs opening wide. I will never again let silence protect the guilty. I've allowed it too many times, but not anymore. I snapped my notebook shut. The sound was small, yet sharp as a rifle bolt locking into place. Outside, night wind slipped through the doorway, carrying the smell of damp earth, sweeping out the bitterness of wine and perfume. Jack's hand closed over mine, rough, warm, steady. The grandfather clock struck 11, each chime like a marching cadence, each one pushing us further from their shadow. Vanessa bit her lip, eyes hollow. Tristan stared at the floor. Alina shut her eyes, head tilted back, flawless hair unable to hide fatigue. I didn't see victory. I saw a battlefield caving in, exposing rot beneath polished floors. Jack leaned closer, whispering, "Let's go back to Fort Liberty." I nodded, gaze on my notebook filled with ink. Tomorrow would bring official reports, lawyers, maybe even military justice. But tonight, in the house that tried to force me to kneel, I was standing tall. I slipped the notebook into my jacket, zipped it closed with a crisp snap. The sound thudded in my chest like a vow. From now on, I would speak, record, expose. And if anyone asked what I had learned here, I would answer with one truth. Silence was no longer their weapon. It was mine.